not about it. I'm just being honest, like my thoughts.
I'm just being honest. One thing that keeps coming up with Chris on Love is Blind is this line that he keeps repeating. I'm just being honest. He would say this over and over again when he was saying something that was completely hurtful.
I wasn't trying to be mean.
So if him saying that was rubbing you the wrong way, you're completely right. Because the thing is that honesty and cruelty, they're not the same thing. When someone constantly defends themselves by saying, I'm just being honest,
I'm just saying.
what they're actually doing is trying to avoid responsibility for the impact of what they just said. So let's talk about why this repeated phrase was bothering people so much and what's actually happening psychologically when people say this. Because obviously, honesty in a healthy relationship is important. You should be able to say how you feel. You should be able to tell someone the truth. But honesty doesn't mean saying every harsh thing that comes to your mind with zero awareness of how it's going to land for the other person. Healthy honesty includes empathy and intention. It's not just about whether something is technically true. It's about how you communicate it and why you're even saying it. And that's where people like Chris become villains in these situations. Because what he was doing wasn't honest communication. It was saying something blunt or critical and then immediately defending it with, I'm just being honest. And psychologically, there's something really interesting about this phrase specifically. Because when someone says, I'm just being honest, they're reframing the situation. Now the conversation isn't about whether what they said was hurtful. The conversation becomes about whether or not you can handle the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
So if you now react in a way that signals that you're hurt, now you're the problem. You're too sensitive. You can't handle honesty. You can't handle the truth. And that's why that phrase rubs people the wrong way, because it should. Because it shifts the responsibility away from the person who said something that was hurtful. And there's actually something interesting in psychology around the people who pride themselves on being brutally honest. Research has found that those who describe themselves that way often score higher in what's called the dark triads personality traits. That refers to narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. And the one thing those traits tend to have in common is lower empathy combined with more blunt, self-serving communication. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone who says they're brutally honest falls into one of these categories. And I'm certainly not diagnosing Chris. I don't know him. But it does explain why sometimes when someone says, I'm just being honest, what they really mean is, I'm just comfortable saying things that hurt people. And I think that's why people reacted so strongly to Chris on the show. Because it wasn't just that he was being honest. It was that he kept saying things that were unnecessarily harsh and then using honesty as the justification.
To be totally honest and like without sounding like a fucking dickhead. I don't know how to say it. Like in the normal world, like I date people who like fucking do like fucking CrossFit and shit.
But honesty without empathy isn't honesty. It's cruelty, and then you're just slapping this moral label on it. And people can feel the difference, and they did feel the difference. Even if you didn't know exactly why, you still knew that something about it wasn't right. And this isn't just something you see on TV. You see it in real relationships all the time. When someone constantly says, I'm just being honest, what they're often really saying is, I don't want to be responsible for how my words affect you. Because honesty in healthy relationships includes accountability. You can still be honest without being intentionally hurtful. And that is something that I actually said when that infamous couch episode with Chris and Jessica aired. Chris said a lot of things that were completely unnecessary.
Somebody who does fucking like Pilates every day, or like someone who's like working out every day.
He could have had a very open and honest conversation with her and expressed that he was simply struggling with the physical aspect of their relationship. I'm sure that would have still been painful for Jessica to hear. There's really no way around that. But it wouldn't have been brutal in the way that it was. And listen, I'm not even disappointed that he handled it the way that he did. Because ultimately, it showed Jessica who he really was really quickly. And she believed it when she saw it. And it ended their relationship. And I was glad about that. But the bigger point here is when you hear someone say something like, I'm just being honest, and it doesn't feel like honesty, it feels unnecessary, it feels cruel, it feels like they're going out of their way to hurt you. That feeling that you're having is information. Don't override that instinct. If someone in your life delivers something harsh and then hides behind, I'm just being honest, pay attention to how that actually feels. Because remember, honesty and cruelty are not the same thing. Have you ever noticed this in your own life? Someone saying something really harsh and then quickly following it with, I'm just being honest. Do you think that's honesty? Or is it just an excuse to say whatever they want?